Habitable.
Habitable.
It would cost a fortune to make the place habitable.
Habitat.
Habitat.
Watching monkeys in their natural habitat.
The grassland is an important habitat for many wildflowers.
Habitation.
Habitation.
There was no sign of habitation as far as the eye could see.
Habit forming.
Habit forming.
Habitual.
Habitual.
His drinking had become habitual.
James took his habitual morning walk around the garden.
Men who are habitually violent.
Habituate.
Habituate.
Over the centuries, these animals have become habituated to living in a dry environment.
Habitue.
Habitue.
Hacienda.
Hacienda.
Hack.
Hack.
She hacked away at the ice trying to make a hole.
Whole forests have been hacked down.
He hacked his way through the undergrowth.
Both men had been hacked to death.
Somebody hacked into the company's central database.
He managed to hack the code.
I've been doing this job for years, but I just can't hack it anymore.
His attitude really hacks me off.
A Sunday newspaper hack uncovered the story.
The meeting was attended by the usual old party hacks.
One more hack and the branch was off.
A long hack across the fields.
Hacked off.
Hacked off.
I'm getting really hacked off about the whole thing.
Hacker.
Hacker.
A hacker had managed to get into the system.
The threat of hacking and computer viruses.
Hacking cough.
Hacking cough.
Hackles.
Hackles.
Laura heard his remark and felt her hackles rising. Laura heard his remark and felt her hackles rising. His tactless remarks were enough to raise anyone's hackles.
Hackney carriage.
Hackney carriage.
Hackneyed.
Hackneyed.
Hacksaw.
Hacksaw.
Hacktivist. Hacktivist.
Had.
Had.
Hades.
Hades.
Haddock.
Haddock.
Hadn't.
Hadn't.
If I hadn't seen it myself, I'd never have believed it.
Hematology.
Hematology.
Hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin.
Hemophilia.
Hemophilia.
Hemophiliac.
Hemophiliac.
Hemorrhage.
Hemorrhage.
He died of a massive brain hemorrhage.
A hemorrhage of jobs from the region.
The once prosperous town has hemorrhaged manufacturing jobs over the last 15 years.
Hemorrhoids.
Hemorrhoids.
Haft.
Haft.
Hag.
Hag.
Haggard.
Haggard.
Sam looked tired and haggard.
A haggard face.
Haggis.
Haggis.
Haggle.
Haggle.
Tourists haggling over the price of souvenirs.
Ted was haggling with the street vendors.
Hagiography.
Hagiography.
Ha.
Ha.
Ha ha.
Ha ha.
Oh, very funny, John. Ha ha.
Haiku.
Haiku.
Hail.
Hail.
Lang's first film was immediately hailed as a masterpiece.
The new service has been hailed a success.
A young man is being hailed a hero tonight after rescuing 2 children.
She leaned out of the window and hailed a passerby.
The hotel doorman will hail a cab for you. It's windy and hailing outside.
And where do you hail from?
Heavy showers of rain and hail.
The aircraft were met by a hail of gunfire.
The proposals met with a hail of criticism.
Hail Mary.
Hail Mary.
Hail Mary pass.
Hail Mary pass.
Hailstone.
Hailstone.
Hailstorm.
Hailstorm.
Hair.
Hair.
Her hair was short and dark. A short, fat man with no hair on his head.
He's a tall, fair-haired guy.
The cat has left white hairs all over the sofa.
I'm starting to get a few grey hairs.
Long-haired cats.
Anyone else would have been tearing their hair out trying to follow these instructions.
The party gave us all a chance to really let our hair down.
I'm having a bit of a bad hair day.
All right, keep your hair on, I'm sorry.
Tales that would make your hair curl.
Hairbrush.
Hairbrush.
Hair care.
Hair care.
Advice on makeup and hair care.
Hair care products.
Haircloth.
Haircloth.
Haircut.
Haircut.
I haven't had a haircut for months. Do you like my new haircut?
They may have to take a haircut on their investment.
Hairdo.
Hairdo.
Hairdresser.
Hairdresser.
An appointment at the hairdresser's.
Hairdryer.
Hairdryer.
Hairgrip.
Hair grip.
Hairless.
Hairless.
Young rabbits are born blind and hairless.
Hairline.
Hairline.
He had put on weight, and his hairline was beginning to recede.
A hairline fracture in a bone.
Hairnet.
Hairnet.
Hairpiece.
Hairpiece.
Hairpin.
Hairpin.
Hairpin bend.
Hairpin bend.
Hair raising.
Hair raising.
A hair-raising car chase.
Hair's breadth.
Hair's breadth.
The bullet missed me by a hair's breadth.
Hair shirt.
Hair shirt.
Hair slide.
Hair slide.
Hair splitting.
Hair splitting.
Hairspray.
Hairspray.
Hairstyle.
Hairstyle.
Do you like my new hairstyle?
Hair trigger.
Hair trigger.
Hair trigger.
Hair trigger.
His hair trigger temperament. Hairy.
Hairy.
A skinny guy with hairy legs.
A hairy caterpillar.
It was pretty hairy climbing down the cliff.
A few hairy moments.
Hajj.
Hajj.
Hadji.
Haji.
Hake. Hake.
Hake.
Hakim.
Hakim.
Halal.
Halal.
Halberd.
Halberd.
Halcyon.
Halcyon.
Hale.
Hale.
She's still hale and hearty at 74.
Half.
Half.
Over half of the children live in one-parent families.
Only half the guests had arrived by 7 o'clock.
If you look at our members, at least half are women.
Half a pound of butter.
It's about half a mile down the road. She drank half a bottle of wine.
$500,000.
You can't just waltz in a half hour late.
It's about a half mile down the road.
A half-day excursion to the island.
He demanded a half share of the money.
It's only half the size of a normal violin.
They offered to pay half the cost of repairs.
We missed half of what he said because someone was talking.
She seems to be asleep half the time. She seems to be asleep half the time.
Getting covered in mud is half the fun. Getting covered in mud is half the fun.
I got home at about 1:30. I rang at about 6:30. I rang at about 6:30. We'll be there by 7 or 7:30. Half a dozen eggs.
There were half a dozen other people in front of me.
I'd go to university if I got half the chance.
Many kids would sleep till noon given half a chance.
He listened with only half an ear, and his thoughts wandered.
The teacher kept half an eye on them all through the lesson. The teacher kept half an eye on them all through the lesson.
Getting the audience to like you is half the battle.
Hold on, this will only take half a second.
Journalists are convinced that she was only telling them half the story.
He had half a mind to ask for his money back.
I have half a mind to tell your mother about this.
This is no time for half measures.
2 halves make a whole.
My son's 3.5 now.
An hour and a half later. 2,500 people.
In the first half of the 19th century.
He kept the other half of the cake for himself.
A veil covered the lower half of her face.
The southern half of the country. She tore the piece of paper in half.
A plan to cut European forces by half.
France played very well in the first half.
The 23-year-old Newcastle centre-half. Can I have a half of lager, please? 1.5 to Waterloo, please.
That was a meal and a half.
Everyone knows she's a difficult girl, but they don't know the half of it.
I'm sure it will be a fantastic wedding. Eva never does anything by halves.
Do you want to go halves on a pizza? Do you want to go halves on a pizza?
That boy's too arrogant by half.
He was half in the water and half out.
She was standing there half-dressed, putting on her makeup.
The door was only half closed.
The jug was still half full.
A half-empty wine bottle. I was only half awake.
He looked half asleep. I was half expecting her to say no.
I half hoped that they wouldn't come.
I said it half-jokingly.
He's half English, half Swiss.
The kitten looked half-starved.
He was half dead with exhaustion.
I had been driven half out of my mind with worry. The new machine has all the same functions, but is only half as large.
A flat in London costs almost half as much again as a flat in Glasgow.
The movie wasn't half as entertaining as the book.
She can't love you half as much as I do. She can't love you half as much as I do.
She doesn't half talk once she gets started. She doesn't half talk once she gets started.
Actually, the party wasn't half bad. The group was about half and half, complete beginners and people with some experience.
Half and half.
Half and half.
Half-assed.
Half-arsed.
He made a half-assed attempt to clean up after the party. What a half-assed idea.
Halfback.
Halfback.
Half-baked.
Half-baked.
He's always coming out with these half-baked ideas which will never work.
Half-board.
Half-board.
Half-board accommodation.
Half-breed.
Half-breed.
Half-brother.
Half-brother.
Half-caste.
Half-caste.
Half-cocked.
Half-cocked.
Half-crazed.
Half-crazed.
She was half crazed with pain.
Half-crown.
Half-crown.
Half-cut.
Half-cut.
Half-day.
Half-day.
Friday is my half-day off.
Half-day.
Half-day.
Half-day courses on study skills.
Half-dollar.
Half-dollar.
Half-hearted.
Half-hearted.
Congress has made half-hearted attempts at finance reform.
Half-holiday.
Half-holiday.
Half-hour.
Half-hour.
Faye had been in her room for a good half hour. A half-hour TV show.
Half-hourly.
Half-hourly.
Trains depart at half-hourly intervals.
Half-length.
Half-length.
Half-life.
Half-life.
Half-light.
Half-light.
The cold half-light of the early morning.
Half-mast.
Half-mast.
Half-measures.
Half-measures.
Half-measures will not fix the healthcare system.
Half-moon.
Half-moon.
Half-Nelson.
Half-Nelson.
Half-note.
Half-note.
Halfpenny.
Halfpenny.
Half-pipe.
Half-pipe.
Half-price.
Half-price.
Many shoes are at half price or less. Half-price tickets will be sold on the day.
Children aged 2 to 14 go half-price.
Half-sister.
Half-sister.
Half-step.
Half-step.
Half-term.
Half-term.
Half-time.
Half-time.
The score at half-time was 34-7.
A half-time lead.
Half-timbered.
Half-timbered.
Half-tone.
Half-tone.
Half-truth.
Half-truth.
His replies were full of evasions and half-truths.
Halfway.
Halfway.
He chased Kevin halfway up the stairs.
It was a terrible film. I left halfway through.
Traffic queues stretching back halfway to London.
They've just reached the halfway stage of the project. Establish the right relationships at work and you're halfway there.
We're still only halfway to finishing the job.
The only halfway decent hotel here.
Halfway house.
Halfway house.
Belief is a kind of halfway house between non-belief and absolute proof. Belief is a kind of halfway house between non-belief and absolute proof.
Hammer and sickle.
Hammer and sickle.
Hammered.
Hammered.
Hammering.
Hammering.
The city took a real hammering during the war. There was a loud hammering at the door. Hammock.
Hammock.
Hammy.
Hammy.
Hamper.
Hamper.
She tried to run, but was hampered by her heavy suitcase.
An attempt to rescue the men has been hampered by bad weather.
A picnic hamper.
They sent us a lovely Christmas hamper.
Hamster.
Hamster.
Hamstring.
Hamstring.
He pulled a hamstring in training.
The president feels he is hamstrung by Congress.
Hand.
Hand.
Steve gripped the steering wheel tightly with both hands.
In her hand was a tattered old photograph.
Do you need a hand packing?
Can you give me a hand to lift this?
If you get stuck, Denise is always willing to lend a hand. If you get stuck, Denise is always willing to lend a hand.
We could certainly do with a hand.
The president has strengthened the hand of the gun lobby.
This matter is too important to be left in the hands of an inexperienced lawyer. A manager with a firm hand.
The demonstration was getting out of hand.
I'd like to eat out, but on the other hand, I should be trying to save money.
Hey, hands off that CD. It's mine. Tell your little brother to keep his hands off my car.
Plans are in hand to perform Oz next semester. Plans are in hand to perform Oz next semester.
Lisa seemed to have things in hand by the time he returned. Our officers have to concentrate 100% on the task in hand. I usually have a few days' leave in hand at the end of the year.
The matter is in the hands of the police.
You can be sure your children are in good hands.
The fear is that nuclear secrets could fall into the wrong hands.
Hands up, you're under arrest.
The men emerged from the building with their hands up.
Hands up if you agree with what Eric was saying. Recent economic performance suggests that a major crisis is at hand.
Don't worry, help is at hand. Peter turned his attention to the task at hand.
Our staff are always on hand to help.
We had to wash our clothes by hand.
A chance to view at first hand the workings of the court.
Until now, information has been second or third hand, but this news comes from someone who was there.
Anyone who suffered at the hands of care workers will be entitled to compensation.
This is their third defeat at the hands of the world champions.
She's only marrying him to get her hands on his money.
I would read any book I could lay my hands on.
She's only marrying him to get her hands on his money.
They ran, picking up whatever weapons came to hand.
Just wait till I get my hands on you.
He had a hand in both goals.
Wealth and power go hand in hand in most societies.
They say that genius often goes hand in hand with madness.
They walked hand in silence up the path.
I'm afraid we have a murder on our hands, Inspector.
Once this problem is off our hands, we can relax for a while. Once this problem is off our hands, we can relax for a while.
She wants someone to take the kids off her hands occasionally.
John dreamed of being a writer and had tried his hand at poetry. John dreamed of being a writer and had tried his hand at poetry.
Larry's one of those men who can turn their hand to anything.
Aromatherapy was dismissed out of hand by traditional doctors. Aromatherapy was dismissed out of hand by traditional doctors.
Nigel always won hands down in any argument.
Can't it wait? I already have my hands full.
Thick forest stood on either hand.
It's not that the jobs aren't there, it's just that she doesn't want to get her hands dirty.
He never talked to the media or got his hands dirty in any way.
You should at least work part-time just to keep your hand in.
Far from being independent, the government and media work hand in glove.
5 years ago, the company was losing money hand over fist.
Let's all give the girls a big hand.
With only half an hour to get everything ready, it was all hands on deck.
Farmhands.
A winning hand.
The bank claims its hands are tied by federal regulators.
He asked for her hand in marriage.
He handed the teacher a slip of paper.
He lit a cigarette and handed it to her.
This form must be handed to all employees.
You have to hand it to her. She's really made a success of that company. Willie helped hand the mugs around.
Kurt examined the document and handed it back to her. She handed him his pen back.
The land was handed back to its original owner.
The government has promised to hand investors back their money.
The ring was handed down to her from her grandmother.
Stories handed down by word of mouth. Stories handed down by word of mouth.
Tom has handed in his resignation.
Did you hand your homework in on time?
He was accused of handing on government secrets.
Could you start handing these books out, please?
He was handing out leaflets to members of the audience.
The soldiers were ordered to hand over their guns.
He handed the phone over to me.
On his retirement, he handed the business over to his son.
Political control has been handed over to religious leaders.
Now she feels the time has come to hand over to someone else. Now she feels the time has come to hand over to someone else. Now she feels the time has come to hand over to someone else.